Hi there, this is Elaine. Today is the 4th story in the Monty and Tonty series, and it's called The Battleship. Now, for those of you who have not met Monty and Tonty before, they are both black and white border collies. Monty is part Kelpie, that's why he looks a bit different from Tonty. More than anything, those two dogs love to go on adventures. The story always starts with Monty in his garden, as his family are leaving for work and school, and ends after the adventure, when he is back in his backyard waiting for his family to arrive home at the end of the day. Now don't worry if you go to sleep before the end, because guess what? You can listen to it again and again, so you won't miss anything. Sweet dreams. So make sure you're comfortable, either in bed or somewhere else. And I want you to move one part of your body at a time. Move it and then relax it, okay? So let's start with your head. Move it, relax. Now onto your shoulders. Move them, then relax. Arms one at a time now. Move, relax. Hands. Move them, relax them. Fingers. Move and relax. Now lift your hips, move them and drop them down and relax. Legs one at a time, lift and relax. Squiggle your feet a bit, relax. And finally your toes and relax. Now I wonder if your body's feeling just a teeny bit more settled now, just a little bit calmer. Just notice where your covers are. Are you comfy? You might even be feeling a little bit sleepy, and that's okay. It's been a long day. Now you can either close your eyes or you can keep them open and then close them whenever you want to. The first thing I want you to do before we start the story is just to do a little bit of breathing. And you can use your breath to relax your mind and body even more. So let me show you how. First, breathe in through your nose like this. And then breathe out through your mouth. You try now. Breathe in. Breathe out. Just do this for a few times more now. And notice how nice and calm and relaxed you feel now. So are you ready for the story? It has been days since Monty has been out of his garden, and the fence appeared to be higher this morning. Monty's family have been on holiday for a few days, so he was stuck in the garden and he was really bored. But today he watched the car leave the garage and hoped that Tonty would come and visit him. As he lay sprawled in the grass in the early morning, counting the clouds overhead, he heard a psst sound from the other side of the back gate. Jumping up, he raced over the grass towards the gate. "Monty, are you there?" whispered the soft, friendly voice of his best friend Tonty. Yes, yes, I'm here, Tonty. Where have you been? As Monty edged his nose closer to the small gap in the fence, he could see her. I've been busy walking a lot with my family. This was the first chance I had to get away, said Tonty. I can't wait to do something exciting today, Monty. Monty smiled the biggest smile. He loved his adventures with Tonty. They were always so much fun. Just wait, I'm coming, he said, and without another word, he ran back to the house, and with all his strength, he sprinted as fast as he could and launched himself into the air, clearing the fence easily. Tonty was smiling and wagging her tail as Monty landed on all fours on the other side. He was getting quite good at this. They had a dog sniff and tails wagging and nuzzling in for a dog hug. Good to see you, buddy. I feel like doing something crazy today, she said. Got any good ideas? Well, Monty said, there's a big battleship down at the port, and I heard my family say that people can go and visit it. How about we go down and do some exploring? I've always wanted to see a real live battleship. Tonty agreed it was a great idea, as neither of them had ever been on a boat, never mind a real live battleship. So, side by side, they raced each other along the footpath, sniffing and smelling as they went towards the train station. Unsure of when the next train would come and where it would lead, Tonty climbed on Monty's back to read the train map and see which way they should go. Okay, Monty, we take the train to the city and then take another train to the port, she said with confidence. Monty was very glad that Tonty had learned to read, as all he could see was a mumble-jumble of words. After only a few minutes, the train was edging into the station. Luckily, a nice old lady opened the door to get off, which meant that Monty and Tonty could easily jump through her legs and into the carriage. They decided to stay close to the door so that Tonty could read the name of each station. A couple of young children and their mum were watching them with interest, as the little boy was pleading with his mum to please pat the dogs. Although in the beginning the mum was not sure, she decided it was safe to let him pat them. This made Monty and Tonty giggle as they lapped up the pats. They eventually arrived in the city, and it was not easy trying to dodge all the fast-moving people, many of whom were unsure how to react at the sight of two dogs on their own. Eventually they found the platform to the port, and before too long they were on their way to see the battleship. It was huge. It was a massive ship. It seemed to reach all the way up to the sky. The whole ship was painted grey, and it looked a bit scary. It had guns on it, and for an instant Monty wondered if this was a good idea. As they approached the gangway, they realised it was not going to be easy to get on board. A young sailor kept shooing them away as he dealt with the human visitors. After a while, he started to get annoyed with them, and Monty said to Tonty, I think we're going to have to find another way to get on board, and we might have to split up. A group of school kids had arrived, and their teacher was trying to organise them to move up the gangplank 2 by 2. Monty signalled to Tonty to go first. Tonty hovered low close to the first lot of kids and managed to get to the top of the gangway and immediately crawled behind a large box. Monty was on his way up with the final group of kids, some of whom had spotted him and were all drooling about how cute he was. Luckily, the sailor at the bottom of the gangway was dealing with another group of visitors and was not watching the kids laughing and giggling about Monty. With Tonty now safe by his side, they gave each other a dog's high five and started to have a serious look around. They moved up and down very steep stairs, which were not made for 4 legs, and they constantly lost their balance, sprawled and missed a step, but eventually they got down to what they thought was the bottom of the ship and saw a door slightly ajar that said engine room. They squeezed in and were amazed at the size of the engines and the pistons and all the equipment that makes the ship move. But it was very hot and steamy and quite smelly in there. Suddenly they heard voices from outside the door, and then the door was slammed shut. They then heard other voices inside the engine room, and Monty and Tonty rushed to find a hiding place. "What was that noise?" said one of the men. "Probably rats, I think," said the other man as he started to move closer to Monty and Tonty's hiding place. Monty and Tonty were both shaking as they could smell the human coming closer. There was really nowhere to go, and as the dogs cowered in the corner, a very ugly-looking human with an oil-covered face peered down at them, shining a blinding light torch. "What have we got here?" he said, hands on his hips, as his scrawny mate peered over his shoulder. "A couple of stowaways, I think. What are you doing here?" he growled. "Dogs are not allowed on board a battleship." "Maybe we should keep them as mascots or something," mumbled his mate. "Don't think so," the ugly man replied. "We'll think about what to do with them later. Come on, we better get up on deck." Monty and Tonty were both shaking with fear as they heard the big metal door being banged shut and then locked. They knew there was no chance of escaping through that main door. Now, with the men gone, they started checking out the engine room. Surely there must be another way out. But because they were so far down into the belly of the ship, there were no windows, and all the other doors were made of really thick steel. Monty was trying not to panic, but their adventures were slowly turning into a nightmare. It was dark, smelly and cold in the engine room, and Monty was starting to get hungry. He thought about his lonely garden and wished he was back there. They sat on the ground just looking at each other, wondering what to do. When Tonty saw something move out the corner of her eye, and a brown and white mouse was standing in front of them on 2 legs. Well, said the mouse, "I think you two are stuck. Looks like you're prisoners." "Yes," said Monty, "we are, and we don't know how to get out of here. Who are you?" The little brown and white mouse was then joined by a black mouse and a pure white mouse, and all 3 stood upright in front of the dogs. "We are the 3 Mouseketeers. I am Sebastian, That's Fleur and he's Jamie. And we can definitely help you escape. You see, that's what we do. Each of the mice had a hat with a feather on it and had a small sword attached to a leather belt around their waists. Monty thought they didn't look very fierce, and how on earth were they going to help them escape? Okay, said Tonty. That would be great, but how are we going to get out of here? Fleur the white mouse showed them a small hole, a tunnel that moved into a pipe that was hidden behind one of the big engines. This leads all the way to the top deck, and once you get there, you'll be able to sneak off the ship, she said. The hole looked very small and didn't seem to be big enough for Monty and Tonty to get through. I don't think I can fit in there, said Monty, now starting to get really worried. Hang on a minute, said Sebastian, and he put his hand in his pocket and pulled out 2 little glass bottles. This is a magic potion, and when you drink it, it will shrink you to the size of a mouse for exactly 10 minutes, not a moment longer, and by the time you get off the ship, you'll be back to your normal self. Remember, you only have 10 minutes, so you're gonna have to move fast. And when you get to the top deck, you will have to sprint as fast as you can, all the way down the gangplank, okay? Monty stood up, his chest out, and said, Yep, we can do this. Thank you, Sebastian, Fleur, and Jamie for helping us. Thank you. We will be behind you through the tunnel, said Fleur, making sure that you're okay. That's very kind of you, said Tonty. Thank you so much. You are true musketeers. As they were getting ready to drink the potion, they heard the big steel door slowly open, and in walked the 2 men from before. Tonty and Monty were close to the door but out of sight, and within minutes they heard the footsteps of the men getting louder. Where are those dogs? Shouted one of the men. Sebastian handed the potion to the dogs and they gulped it down. In a matter of seconds they started to get smaller and smaller until they were both the size of a mouse. Okay, follow me, said Fleur as she jumped up through the hole into the pipe. All 5 animals disappeared just as the men turned the corner to see Jamie's tail disappear through the hole. Stop, he shouted. It's those mouse musketeers again, shouted the ugly man. Quick, let's get up on top deck. And the 2 men bounded out the door and up the stairs. Meantime, the animals were scampering as fast as they could. First Monty, then Tonty, followed by the 3 mice, speeding as fast as their legs could carry them. Up and down and around to the left, to the right, and then up and up and up. Both dogs were sweating and could hear their hearts pounding against their chests. Faster, shouted Sebastian. They're on to us. Higher and higher they ran until they came to a light at the end of the pipe, and one by one they popped out of the hole. Okay, keep going, Monty and Tonty. Good luck, shouted Fleur. The dogs said a silent thank you and kept running towards the other side of the ship where the gangplank was. Hearts pounding, they kept up the speed. And although still as small as a mouse, one of the men saw them and screamed, It's those dogs! Stop them! They're escaping! They continued to sprint through the deck, followed by a heavy clomping of human feet in close pursuit. One last lot of stairs before the top, and with superhuman effort they both launched themselves into the air, gaining some distance from the chasers and landing near where the gang plank should have been. Now they were on the top deck and there were sailors everywhere, all joining in the chase as the ugly man started screaming, "Stop the dogs!" Monty was 2 or 3 paces in front of Tonty as they realised that the boat had started sailing out of port. "Tonty, we have to jump," Monty screamed, and they made their way up the front of the ship. Monty nodded in agreement. He could see she was scared, but she kept her lead over the men. They both noticed they were almost the size of dogs again as the potion had worn off, and Monty grabbed Tonty's paw and they jumped into the air and off the ship into the churning, dark, cold water. It felt like hours before they both surfaced, knowing that they would have to doggy paddle like crazy to save their lives. Not far from where they landed, Monty spied a large wooden box with a label on it that said, "The Three Musketeers." Monty smiled for a second, feeling that those amazing mouse friends were still with them. Monty helped Tonty to grab onto the box, exhausted, very scared, but alive. Monty could see the shore and he knew that they would make it. They could see the battleship in the distance and what looked like 3 little hands waving. For what seemed like hours, they floated, clinging to the box, and eventually 2 fishermen saw the box floating in the water with what must have looked like 2 wet and soggy rat-like objects on top of it. The fishermen were very kind. They helped them onto the boat. They gave them towels, water, and some cold stew which tasted like the best food Monty had ever eaten. The fishermen dropped the dogs at shore and they walked slowly and quietly into the city to get the train home. As the train left the city, they sat quietly leaning against each other for support with their heads down, totally exhausted, just wanting to sleep. When the train got into the station, Monty and Tonty said goodbye and Monty made his way back to the garden. It took all his strength to jump back over the fence. As he landed in the garden, he heard the car pull into the garage. Tail wagging a little bit slower than normal, he greeted his dear family, pretending to be full of energy. After the usual pats and cuddles, he got to settle down inside on his mat. Monty couldn't even think about what had happened, but was so grateful the 3 musketeers were there to help them. What would they have done without those amazing, brave and kind mice? Monty was sure this was not the first time they had helped other animals get off that battleship. He curled up, took a few breaths in and out, and then allowed his mind to take him into the land of Nod, the land of sleep. So sleepy now, so drowsy now, drifting away, deeper and deeper into sleep. So tired, so ready to sleep now. Night night.